And today we're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 11 and 12. If you're new today, we are making a journey through the book of Ecclesiastes. And today we're going to learn about clouds of uncertainty, our frailty in understanding many things in life, as well as how life is unpredictable. But we're also going to be learning more about the greatness of God, and I trust growing in expressing our hope and our confidence in the Lord. The sound of rain is a wonderful thing today. I'll go ahead and tell you ahead of time, if the electricity goes out, I'm planning on just preaching from the heart. And so be prepared for that. I don't think we have a good plan. If the electricity goes out, we'll just sit and we'll worship in the darkness physically, but with the light of the Word going forth in preaching without a mic. What a blessing to be here. Turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 9, and I want to read verse 10. We looked at this last week, Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10, on our way into verses 11 and 12 today in Ecclesiastes 9. But we saw last week in verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, to which you are going. We learn and we're instructed in verse 10, in everything that we do within the will of God and in His wisdom, we're to do it with all of our might. In business, making money, the cultivation of your talents and abilities, in all of your plans, family life, relationship, hobbies, sports, in all that your hand finds to do, do it with all of your might within the will and wisdom of God. But even when we do everything we're called to do with all of our might, even if we were to do that, life is still unpredictable as far as many of the outcomes and the results. We're going to see that in verse 11. And the future is uncertain as far as specific trials, difficulties, stress in your life, in my life. Yes, the future is not uncertain in the sovereign hand of God. No. And God's reign and rule and God accomplishing His purpose, but those are secret things that belong to Him. The future in our lives, as far as when we're going to die, what awaits us the rest of this day, this week, and the rest of our lives, those things are uncertain to us. And it shows us how fragile we are and how we have limits in our knowledge and understanding of the outworking of God's plan. Matthew Henry said in relationship to verses 11 and 12 of Ecclesiastes 9, he said this, that he has exhorted us in verse 10 to do what we have to do with all our might. But here, he reminds us that when we've done all that we can, we must leave the issue with the Lord and not be confident of the success merely from our own abilities or our own talents. Tim Potter said, we are learning from Solomon how to live simply in the margin of mystery created by the unpredictability of life. Ecclesiastes 9, 11 to 18, we'll look at verses 11 and 12, warns us not to trust our personal ability or trust in the opportunities that we have. Let's worship in the reading of verses 11 and 12, Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Notice in verse 11. Again, I saw that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge. And look at this interesting statement. But time and chance happen to them all. Time and chance happen to all of us. Life is unpredictable. Verse 12. For man does not know his time. His time of death is the idea. Therefore, the truth here is the future, as far as that, and things in our lives until we die, it's uncertain from our limited perspective and understanding. And then he illustrates how man does not know his time. Notice in verse 12, like fish that are taken in an evil net, and like birds that are caught in a snare, so the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. So the first major theme in our worship of God today in verse 11, life is unpredictable. We have read verse 11. The author is reflecting on the unpredictable nature of life. Verse 12 highlights that in life, outcomes, results, are not solely determined by factors like speed, strength, wisdom, intelligence, or learning. Instead, unexpected events, referred to as time and chance, will shape a person's life underneath the sovereign God who is in heaven and we are on earth. Chapter 5, verse 2. This suggests that life is not always fair or just, and even the most skilled and prepared individuals will face unforeseen challenges and difficulties as God is sovereign over all the times and seasons of our lives. So let's break it down in verse 11. He says again, he's reflecting, I saw that under the sun, first of all, the race is not to the swift. Unexpected things happen in races. Back in the year 2008, there was a runner, a lady by the name of Lola Jones. She was expected to win the gold in the 100-meter hurdles. At that time, she was known as the fastest runner in the world. Everybody was expecting her to win. But as the race began, hurdle after hurdle, she crossed. But on the 9th hurdle, she tripped, and she came in 9th place. It was unexpected. Sure, people knew that could happen, but she had prepared, she trained, and she arrived, and she competed. People were expecting her to win the gold medal. She came in 7th place. Life is unpredictable. Here recently, Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks that has ever played in the NFL, he was traded to the New York Jets. There was expectation. He had plans to take them to the playoffs and even perhaps the Super Bowl. Many fans in the organization of the New York Jets, they had expectations. On his 4th play in a Jets uniform, he tore his Achilles tendon and he's out for the season. The race is not always to the swift. Life is unpredictable. Notice secondly, nor is the battle to the strong. There's a wonderful example in the Old Testament with Goliath, that Philistine who challenged and defied God in the army of Israel. He was big, he was strong, he was a mighty warrior, and he challenged Israel to bring forth its mightiest warrior. And in response to that challenge, a young shepherd by the name of David, he stepped forward, armed with only a sling and a handful of stones, and with precision, he aimed at Goliath, struck him in the forehead, and that towering giant came to an end. And it serves to show us that strength doesn't always guarantee victory. There are exceptions to the rule. Life is filled with things that are uncertain and things that cannot be predicted. And then these examples of physical strength are followed by examples of intellectual superiority. Notice continuing. And what he's tracing out here is the theme of unexpected outcomes. Unexpected things that occur. He says, nor bread to the wise. Surely the wise would have a good livelihood, a good store of food or bread. Normally that is the case. But there are exceptions to that. And then he says, nor riches to the intelligent. One would expect that the intelligent would be excellent in gaining riches. And that, generally speaking, may be the case. But there are things, there are variables outside the control of the intelligent. There are intelligent people that invest in the stock market, that make big business decisions. And as they're intelligent and they have experience, they make many great decisions. But one bad decision or things outside of their control, there are many things outside of our control, can take place and the stock market can crash, or one business decision can bring ruin upon the intelligent and experienced in their arena of life. And so even the Bible speaks in 1 Timothy 6 about the uncertainty of riches. And so yes, there are general things that we expect, and these things often occur. We expect that the intelligent, the wise, and even the skillful would have their needs met, their livelihood in riches. And then notice it says, nor favor to the skillful. The skillful are those who know how to do something, how to make something. And surely they would be appreciated, but not always. There are exceptions to that. And so we have our expectations in life. We think the swift will win the race, the strong will win the battle, that the wise will have a good salary or livelihood, that intelligent entrepreneurs will be rich, and the skillful will be appreciated. Generally, that is the case, but there are humbling exceptions to that. Why is it that there are so many exceptions to what we normally expect? Look at the answer at the end of verse 11. But time and chance happen to them all. Generally speaking, the swift are normally going to win the race. The strong are normally, they're going to win the battle. The wise, the intelligent, and the skillful are normally going to advance and be successful. But time and chance happen to them all. We are frail. We are weak. No matter how successful, no matter how you cultivate your skills, your abilities, and God-given talents, we are frail creatures of dust. And there are so many things that are completely above us and beyond us and outside of our control. When it says, but time, that is referring to an occasion, and chance refers to an occurrence, an incident, an unexpected event. We are to work hard. We just read in verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all of your might. Do it with everything within you. Develop your skills, develop your abilities, grow in wisdom, work hard, plan and live responsibly, but time and chance happen to them all. Unexpected occurrences, unexpected incidences, unexpected occasions. One writer said the Hebrew word for chance here does not refer to philosophical randomness, but simply occurrence. The idea that the event is not planned by us. As far as we are concerned, anything can happen. To say something happens by chance is simply to confess our ignorance of what is going on, something we didn't expect, and where we really don't know the cause from a human earthly perspective. What we want to do is be able to control things. We want to be setting the odds ourselves. But Solomon here knows that the results are not predictable by any of those who live under the sun. This in no way negates the fact that we should plan, we should have expectations, but all of the outcomes and the results in life are completely in the hand of the Lord. And time and chance happen to us all. These unexpected occurrences, interruptions in the norm, things that we think are going to happen. I want you to turn with me to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And I want to focus for a moment on verses 9 through 11. Ecclesiastes 3, verses 9 through 11. And I want to dig in a little bit more on this phrase, but time and chance happen to them all. And I want us to think about the fact that the time and the chance spoken of at the end of verse 11 in Ecclesiastes 9 are within the sovereign, eternal plan of God. In Ecclesiastes 3, 9 to 11, what gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given the children of man to be busy with. He, God, has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, He has put eternity in man's heart, yet so that man cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. God has an eternal plan that includes the beginning and the end, and God is overseeing that plan. God is carrying out that plan. We trust Him. But within that plan, from our human perspective, there are unexpected things that we weren't looking for. Twists and turns in the providence of God. And it says we're unable to find out what God has done from beginning to end. That work from beginning to end includes the time and the chances that happen in all of our lives that will interrupt our expectations. We were thinking this. This seems to be the norm here. If you're strong, if you're wise, if you're intelligent, if you're skillful, the outcome is going to be this. But time and chance happen to all. Underneath the God of heaven who is working out His sovereign, wise plan. And then in verse 14 of Ecclesiastes 3, I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. God is at work in the time and the chance that happens to us that may change our course, that brings us low and brings brokenness and pain and stress into our lives. Now, in Ecclesiastes 3, back up a little bit and let me read verses 1 and following. We're talking about how time and chance happens to us all, unexpected occurrences. And we see times and seasons spoken of look at chapter 3, verse 1 and following. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. Again, in chapter 5, verse 2, this speaks of heaven. Ecclesiastes 5:2, God is in heaven, we are upon earth. It's the God of heaven who is sovereign over the seasons and times of our lives. Notice verse 2 in Ecclesiastes 3, a time to be born. Who determined our time to be born? God did. God is the one who brought about our conception with a husband and a wife, a man and a woman. He is the one who intricately wove us in our mother's womb. Our birth, that time was planned by God. There's a time to be born and a time to die. In Psalm 139, about verse 16, before we ever lived one day of our lives, God had already written those days in His book before we lived one of them. Our days ordained by the Lord, our day of death is a time under the plan of God, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. These occurrences happen right in the middle of our plans. We're planning, we're living, we're working, we're in family life, hobbies, leisure, recreation. We're living life under the sun. We have our general expectations of how things are going to go, but God is the one who orchestrates all the seasons and the times, and these times in our lives are planned by God, and they often become exceptions of what we think will be the norm, exceptions to the outcomes and the results that we naturally think are going to happen. Notice in verse 5, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. God is working out His purposes, orchestrating all of these seasons and times, and as we live life under the sun, we can't predict accurately all of the outcomes in our lives. And when someone is not growing in knowing the Lord and in trusting Him, and their life is interrupted, oftentimes their worldview will break down when their expectations are crushed. Life is unpredictable. Here's the second thing that we're going to look at. Look at verse 12. The future is uncertain as far as specific occurrences in our life under the sun. As far as what will occur in our lives with health issues, financial issues, job issues, relational issues, and specifically our death, the timing of our death, for man does not know his time. Here we have examples of things that happen suddenly and unexpectedly, with the illustration of a fish taken in a net, taken in an evil net, and birds that are caught in a snare. The passage, or the verse 12, it emphasizes the uncertainty of our future. Just as no one can predict when a fish will be caught in a net or a bird in a snare, people cannot foresee these specific times or circumstances in which they will encounter hard, cold, difficult realities of life under the sun. Thank you. This underscores the truth that we have very limited control over our futures in this life. All of a sudden, unexpected trial or even death can overtake us. We may not suspect a thing. We're going along, doing life, doing our business, and suddenly the net can fall on us. We're caught in a snare, and our life can be over. I'll never forget the Saturday afternoon on April 6th, 2012, the unexpected death of our 15-year-old son, Hayden. We had enjoyed the wedding of Lily and Michael Deutsch, and I went home that Saturday afternoon to take a nap, simply enjoying a nap. An unexpected phone call to our daughter Hannah that Hayden had been in a wreck and that he was unconscious. And I woke up from that nap with this sudden, severe, unexpected turn and change in life. It was completely out of our control. Living life, the heights of joy at a wedding, and then the depths of pain and sorrow. It was a time and a chance. It was a time and an occurrence completely out of our hands, completely unexpected, because man does not know his time. I remember several months ago, I was at Heritage Manor South visiting a hospice patient. It was a lady in her 70s. She had been diagnosed with dementia. She was from the Halton area. I went to visit her. Her husband was there, and he was so sad. He began to describe that she is losing her mind. She hardly recognizes him. And I'll never forget him stating that we had plans for our 70s. This is not what we planned. We had other things we were going to be doing. And right in the middle of their plans, time and chance happened to them that crossed their plans, their ambitions, their dreams of what they would be doing in ministry together. And so life is not only unpredictable, it is uncertain. And it's interesting, messages like this, if we're not led to deepen and grow in our relationship with the Lord, it leads people to despair. It's just darkness. Unexpected things that seem to come out of nowhere, that we can't fix, that we can't change, and we can't help really in the situation as far as making something change that we did not want and that we did not plan. And many in life, they spiral down in darkness and despair in this world without hope, without God, because one does not know his time. Our future in life under the sun, it is uncertain. And as I read a moment ago, there's a time to be born, there's a time to die, there's a time to weep and a time to mourn, as well as laugh and dance. And so what we learn from these verses 11 and 12, that we are not in control. We are frail. We are like the grass of the field that is here one day and then gone the next. For many, this brings occasion for fear, for anxiety, for anger, frustration, and even depression. I do want to state very clearly that the purpose of this message is not to promote fear and worry as we consider deeply the fact that the future is unpredictable, that we are frail in our future as far as specific hard realities that we will experience. It's uncertain. We don't know what a day may bring forth. That is not the purpose, to dwell on that, to sink us. But here's the purpose: to face, this is what Ecclesiastes helps us with, to face head on hard, cold realities under the sun. The fact that we are going to die. The fact that there's weeping and mourning and monotony and hard things in life under the sun. And then to face it through hoping in the Lord. Many people will deny reality and just carry on, not facing reality. Sin, sickness, death, brokenness in this world, and they just carry on. No, this helps us to stare it right in the face and then deal with it in the Lord. The Lord, again, who is in heaven, Ecclesiastes 5:2. The one who is making all things beautiful in its time. So for us, we're not to be led into despair. We're to be led in hoping in God. And now some words of exhortation as we think about this hope in God that is not dealt with specifically in verses 11 and 12 of Ecclesiastes 9, but in the book as a whole, as we learn about the God of heaven, as we learn about the one who has a work that He's doing from beginning to end that we can't fully understand, as we learn about the one we are to reverence and obey, Ecclesiastes 12. It is a life of hope in Him, that even though we can't understand what God is doing from beginning to end, we are called to believe Him. And even though we are surrounded by uncertainties, there is something that is very certain. Our God is certain. His promises are certain. So therefore, the proper response to our frailty, our inability to know what's going to happen in the future, and how the norm and outcomes and results are in the hand of God. It's not always to the swift, not always to the intelligent. Time and chance happen to all. We can be led by God's gracious hand to humble ourselves under His mighty hand, acknowledging that we are not in control. You're not in control. I am not in control. And in that humility before God, we hope in Him. Time and chance happen to all. Verse 12 of our passage, for man does not know his time, but God has made everything beautiful in its time. He's put eternity into our hearts, yet so that He cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. God has an eternal plan that includes everything from the beginning and the end. He is at work, working something beautiful to magnify His Son, to glorify His name in life under the sun. And God is doing that right in the midst of uncertainty, of vanity, frustration, frailty, and our limited knowledge and understanding of all that God is doing. Whether it is love or hate, man does not know, but both are before Him. Our frailty, uncertainty, unpredictability, God's greatness. In Isaiah 46:9 and 11, for I am God and there is no other. I am God, there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times things not yet done, saying this, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. God calls a bird of prey from the east, the man of my counsel from a far country. I have spoken, and I will bring it to pass. I have purposed, and I will do it. All the detailed intricacies of our lives, the time and the chance, something unexpected to us, happens to all of us. Man does not know what is before him, the love and the hate. But God has already declared the end and the beginning. My purpose, God's eternal purpose, making all things beautiful in its time, beyond our full understanding, surrounded by vanity and uncertainty, we can be led by Christ our shepherd to gladly acknowledge, Lord, you're right, your word is true. I'm not in control. Lord, you are. And I don't trust in my skill, in our verses here, in verse 11, my intelligence, my abilities that God gives me that we should cultivate and we should work hard, but I don't trust in that. I don't trust in my opportunities. I walk through opportunities, yes, but I don't trust in those things. I don't trust in being swift. I don't trust in being skillful, although be skillful. I trust in God. Humble yourselves, acknowledging, Lord, this is your world and all it contains, and I am one of your redeemed, and you are working beautiful things in my life right in the midst of the vanity, the futility, my lack of understanding, frustration, and all the monotony in life. Lord, give me a glimpse of you, the God of heaven, the sovereign God of heaven, who does have a plan that's being worked out in all of our limited understanding of what is going on and sometimes the seeming chaos in the world. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel can avail against the Lord. Proverbs 21, verse 30. In Proverbs 21:31, the Lord is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. The outcome, it all belongs to the Lord. And so, in these words of exhortation, in this hope in God, there's this need for humility and the acknowledgement, Lord, my life is it's not in my own hands. Oh, humility under the mighty hand of God. But then secondly, put all of your hope in God. All of your hope in Him. In Psalm 31:15, actually 14 through 16, the psalmist said this, "But I trust in you, O Lord. I say, you are my God." And then verse 15 of Psalm 31, my times. So we trace out seasons and times, time and chance that happen to us all. My times are in your hand. Rescue me from the hand of my enemies and from my persecutors. Make your face shine on your servant. Save me in your steadfast love. Surrounded by uncertainties, but trusting in our immutable, certain God. Trusting in the certainty of who He is. My times are in your hand. There's not anything in our lives or in the world or the universe that is outside of God's hand. That would be a wonderful phrase, Psalm 31:15. My times are in your hand, to echo in our hearts in the coming days. As we're scattered here in a little bit and we go home, my times are in your hand. As we go to bed tonight, and if the Lord never gets weary or tired, and we do, and we'll need sleep this evening, my times are in your hand. As we wake up in the morning and through the night, my times are in your hand. Wake up tomorrow morning, this is the day the Lord has made. I'll rejoice and be glad in it. My times are in your hands. In Psalm 139, verses 1 and following, we're known by the Lord. He's that eternal, gracious watcher, shepherd over us. Before there's a word on our tongue, He knows it altogether. When I wake up, when I go by the way, when I lie down, the Lord sees, the Lord knows. My times are in His hands. Come what may. Man does not know his time, our text. I don't have to know my time. I don't have to know the timing of God's trials or my death. My times are in His hands. That's why the psalmist said, I will trust you because my times are in your hand. And the next day, and the next day, and the weeks coming and going, and months and years, my time, it's all in your hands. Hope in God. Outcomes, results of being swift or skillful. The things mentioned in verse 11. We can't predict all the outcomes. There are exceptions because time and chance happen to us all. Things unexpected to us, but are a part of the seasons and times that include everything in life, Ecclesiastes 3. But a beautiful work of God that we can't fully understand from beginning to end. In James 4, 13 to 17, Psalm 31, my times are in your hand. In James 4, 13 to 17, come now you who say, today or tomorrow, we're going to go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. We should plan, yes. And that's good to plan how you're going to make a profit in working, yes. Yet, you do not know what tomorrow will bring. It's unpredictable. The future is uncertain as far as the particular things in our lives. From our human perspective in life, under the sun, you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, instead of presuming, I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go here, I'm going to make this amount. We should plan, but it should be in the context and with this posture. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, if the God of heaven wills. It's a posture of humility and dependence upon God. If God wills, I should plan. I should, whatever my hand finds to do with all your might, but do it in the context, if God wills, underneath a recognition that my life and my times and everything about me is in the hand of God with a humble submission to Him. If the Lord wills, I'm going to go do this or that. Yes, plan. The mind of man plans his way, but it's the Lord who directs his steps. And there are many plans in a man's mind, but the counsel of the Lord, that will stand. And so we plan, we work, we live responsible, we cultivate skills and abilities, and we do everything the best we can pursuing excellence, but we do it from the posture of dependence. My life, my times, everything about me, it's in your hands. That's a life of freedom. That's a life not of despair. That's not a life of doubt and worry and sinking in depression or despair. Although Christians can struggle with those things. This is a life of a vibrant, growing hope in our God who's working a purpose in our lives. This is why we are called to trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding in all of your ways, in every way of your life, in every arena of your life, in all of your ways, acknowledge Him, know Him. And you know what He will do? He will make your path straight, come what may. There will be grace in God's leadership in one's life. Life is unpredictable and filled with many uncertainties. I want to share with you in closing one of the most unexpected occurrences the world has known. This darkened, fallen world, one of the most unexpected or the most unexpected occurrence is the occurrence of God to a fallen world, sending His Son, Jesus Christ, into the world. The Jews, they were expecting a triumphant leader who would deliver them out of Roman rule and oppression. God sent a humble, suffering servant into an undeserving world full of darkness and sin. God's surprising grace, it's unexpected. God, in the fullness of time, sent forth His Son, born of a woman. Surprising grace, unexpected grace that none of us deserve. And this message of the cross, it's foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know Him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs, Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to Gentiles, but to those who are called, whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Uncertainties. But in the midst of uncertainty, God has spoken in His Son. We trust in the God who has made Himself known in the certainty of who God is revealed in Jesus Christ. We come to Christ for the certainty of life, forgiveness, hope, rest, and peace. We rest in the certainty of who He is. May the Lord use this in all of our hearts to lead us to walk humbly with our God, holding all things loosely here in life under the sun, living with a blessed assurance that our lives and times and every season is in the hand of the Lord, who's planned out things from the beginning to the end to work beautiful things in our lives that magnify Jesus Christ now and forever. Let's pray in closing. Father, I pray that you would lead us in deeper dependence upon you, to live with a posture of saying, if the Lord wills, not living a life of presumption, but a life of joyful, hopeful dependence upon you, upon your Son, the unexpected, surprising grace of God that none of us deserve. Thank you, Lord, for your indescribable gift. Thank you, Lord, that we are not alone in this world. We have your Son, and how will you not also with him freely give us everything that we need? We have one another. Oh Lord, lead us on. In Jesus' name, amen.